Okay. You could unmute yourselves when you have a question or raise your hand, and we could continue that way. I'm going to share my screen now in order to show you what we were working on today. And just to give you a background for those of you who are signing in for the first time, this is a class called Our Faith is Our Strength. My name is Rabbi Moses Haber, and I am extending my comfort zone to teach a topic that I think is essential during this pandemic, that I haven't taught about in the past in the many, many years that I've been teaching, but I recently came upon a book or reread a book that I read a long, long time ago that I thought has messages that can help us all get through this very, very difficult time. The book is called Chovot Levavot, The Duties of Our Heart. It was written by Bahye ibn Pakuda around 1,000 years ago, a little bit before Harambam. And this book, as I mentioned last time, was saying that as Ibn Pakuda was walking around Spain in around 1050 or 1040, depending on who you ask, he saw a lot of people following mitzvot with their hands and their feet, but many people did not understand the basic fundamental belief systems of Judaism. And he says, I have to write a guide. I have to write a guide in order to get people to understand the deep ideas about Judaism. And I asked you last week, wouldn't you love to live a tranquil, calm life? Wouldn't you like to have what's called minuhat nefesh, calm, tranquil lives as you are walking through and journeying through your lives, even through a pandemic? And I said, if you were an avid, and I don't mean slave, I mean servant, if you were a servant and you had a master, you would, and that master took care of your food, shelter, and clothing, you could pretty much go to sleep at night and feel very relaxed and feel very calm. That's because you trust that if you put in your time, if you do your labor, your master will provide food, shelter, and clothing because he cares about you and he wants you to succeed. So if you feel like an Eved Hashem, the Nimshal would say, if you feel like an Eved Hashem and that Hashem is going to take care of all of your needs, you don't need to worry about anything. And we went through last week, and I'll just quickly go through the slides. We went through last week a couple of these concepts, right? We're reading Chovot Levavot. It was written in Spain around 1040. And we're doing the fourth perek of called Sha'ar B'tahon. And we said there are many benefits. There are many benefits for a person who has bitahon. If you don't mind muting yourselves, so let me just do that. I'm just trying to get the hang of this, guys. Okay. We said that if you have bitachon in Hashem, you will have peace of mind. You won't need to rely on other people. You'll be calm. You'll be serene. You'll be happy with whatever is happening in your life, and you'll realize that attaining wealth or losing wealth is not necessarily going to take away from your belief in God. This week, I want to discuss the second perek, and I want to start off with the following story. In Masechet Berachot, there's a story about Rabbi Akiva. It says Rabbi Akiva came to a town, and with him, Rabbi Akiva had a donkey, a rooster, and a candle. And he went into the town. He knocked on the town's doors. You can imagine this big gate surrounding the town. And he says, I need lodging for the evening. Masechet Berachot says, I need lodging for the evening. I have to have somewhere to sleep. And the townspeople did not let him in. They would not fulfill the mitzvah of hachnasat orchim. I'm just trying to mute some people. And Rabbi Akiva, our great sage, had to go sleep in the hills. And in the middle of the night, a wind came and blew out his candle. Now, if you've been camping, you know that if it's dark outside and there's no light, you get afraid. I've been camping, and sometimes when the battery is dying on the flashlight, it's very spooky. But that's not. Rabbi Akiva says anything that happens is for the good. In the middle of the night, while Rabbi Akiva was sleeping, a tiger came and ate his donkey. And then a bear came and ate his rooster. And Rabbi Akiva had nothing. He lost his light, he lost his mode of transportation, and he lost the rooster that was going to give him eggs in the morning. And every time he came upon one of these situations, he says, everything that God is done for me is for the good. Extraordinary belief in God, extraordinary amount of perspective that he has. And in the morning, he woke up and he walked to the town, and the town was decimated. The town that was standing the day before was decimated. There was not one person alive in the town. And he walked through the town. He said to himself, oh my God, if people heard my donkey braying in the middle of the night, the people who came to destroy the town would have heard and would have came and killed me as well. If they saw light from my candle, that I had my candle, they would have seen me and came to kill me as well. If they would have heard the rooster making noise, they would have came to the town and killed me as well. Rabbi Akiva was teaching us a special lesson that in retrospect, we many times, like I said about the old person who's 70 years old, who we get up for because he connected the dots and he was able to see that all the knots in the back of the needle point really make a beautiful picture in the front. If a person has the ability to do that as the things are happening to them, that's an extraordinary amount of bitachon and reliance on God. Now, hang on one second. Okay. So today, I would like to visit with you a question. Hang on. What type of person would you choose to place your trust in? Okay. Don't look at I'll go back one second. So hang on. I want to do too many things at once here. What type of person would you choose to place your trust in? Think about it for a second. I'd like to get answers from you, right? If you could raise your hands. If you had to put your trust into a human being, what type of skill sets or what type of personality would that person have to have in order for you to decide to put trust into that person? Let me hear you. Anybody want to unmute? Right, anybody want to try? It's not a test.
Rabbi, could you repeat it, Rabbi?
Yeah, sure. If you wanted to place, if you had to choose a person to put your trust in, to rely on, what type of person would that be?
Maybe someone with confidence in their decisions, the good.
Say that again.
Maybe somebody with confidence in decision making.
With confidence?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Person with confidence. You would choose to rely on a person that had a midah of confidence. Good. Give me another example. If you could mute, if you're not talking, if you can mute your phone.
Someone who's afraid of Hashem. Somebody who fears Hashem.
Oh, so Alan would only go into business with someone who's afraid of Hashem. Because
someone you would trust. Someone you would trust.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I agree.
If it's something important.
Beautiful. Good. Give me another one. What another?
What about someone who knows more than I do, who I believe has wisdom?
Beautiful. Second, Barbara, I'll get to Isaac. Isaac says somebody who's honest, because I'm going to want to rely on somebody who has the basic core tendency of honesty. Barbara says something fantastic. Barbara, say it again.
Somebody who I feel knows more than me, like somebody who has wisdom, so that I know that they know better than me. They can guide me in the right direction.
Good. Somebody who's smarter than myself.
Somebody older, the elderly, they probably know more.
Good. The older people always know because they could connect the dots retroactively.
Right.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Maybe someone who understands you personally.
Somebody who gets your perspective. So when you ever have a
Right.
situation when you go to your friend for advice, and as they're telling you advice on the phone, you're saying to yourself, wait a second, you're really talking to somebody else because that advice is really does not suit me. So you don't really understand what I'm going through, right? So somebody that really gets me, I'd want to rely on. These are fantastic, fantastic examples. What I'm going to walk you through now is Ibn Pakuda 1,000 years ago set up 7 criteria for you to test the people who you are placing your trust in. Like, think of it for a second. If I'm an employee and I have an employer, I'm going to rely on the employer for certain things. But what type of employer is the right employer to rely on, right? If I'm going into business with somebody, I'm going to have a partner. What type of partner am I going to have? If I'm going to go to somebody for advice, what kind of person am I going to get advice from? These are all fantastic questions. So I'm just going to, before I go on, don't use the chat when I'm sharing the screen because I won't be able to watch the screen. So you could just use a virtual raise your hand and we could call on you. So I'm going to share my screen now. I tried to do it before. Let's see if it works. Okay, good. Here we go. So the Ibn Pakuda says the following, okay? There's a type of person, let's see if this works, hang on. Okay, can everybody see the question and the 1 through 4? Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah. I don't think you're sharing your screen yet.
You don't see it?
No, we see you, not the screen.
You see me, not the screen.
Oh, I see
I
it.
see the screen.
You see the screen? Barry, are you on the phone, Barry?
Yeah, no, okay, now I see it,
You
thanks.
see it, okay. So Ibn Pakuda gives 7 different criteria of people that we can rely on. Of course, it's not working now. Hang on. I have to go through it like this. Hang on. Okay. Number 1, you're going to choose somebody who cares deeply for you. He or she has compassion, love, and even sometimes pity for you. You're going to go to that person because you know that they care for you. Number 2, you're going to choose somebody to rely on who's always available for you, that they're never distracted, and that they're never wrapped up in something else or is tired or lazy. So for instance, let's say you rely on your friend for advice, but it happens to be that you need advice at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, there are some people that are available at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I guarantee you that is not most of them. So you're going to want to choose somebody. Hang on. You're going to want to choose somebody who is always there for you, is never tired, and no matter how many times you ask them for advice, they don't say, I'm done. I don't have enough patience for you. Hang on. Number 3, you are going to choose to rely on a person that can and has the ability and the power in order to get things done for you. And that there's nothing around that prevents him or her from achieving success of protecting you. Number 4, you're going to choose a person to rely on, and Barbara mentioned this before, it's so beautiful, who has the perfect knowledge and insight of what is right for you and only you. So I see like a college kid, I see a college student in the class. A lot of times, college students go to counselors in school to discuss their career tracks. And the college counselor gives one of those students a test, right? It's like a 20-question analytical test that will tell you what career you are fit for. Now, everybody knows that if I'm going to give you a bubble sheet to fill in to figure out what career you're good for, it's probably not the best measure of your character. It was created by some company in order to set you on a right track in a very simple way. But you're much more complex than that, ladies and gentlemen. You're much more complex than a bubble sheet, a 20-question bubble sheet, to decide whether you want to be a doctor, lawyer, or an artist, or a figure skater. Okay. So number 4 is you're going to choose to speak to somebody and to rely on somebody who gets you for being you. You know, I remember working in the school, and somebody would greet me every day saying, "Thank you for being you." Isn't that great? Thank you for being you. It's a beautiful thing because I don't want to deal with anybody else. I want to deal with you. Okay, so let's go to number 5. Okay. Number 5 is that you're going to choose to rely on a person that has proved themselves to you in the past, that he or she has always been there from the beginning. And the reason why that you're relying on that person is because you know from experience in the past that you could rely on them in the future. So that something happened consecutively over time that has shown you that this is a reliable person. And then when you place your trust in that person, you feel very relaxed in doing so. Number 6, he or she that you want to place your reliance in is the only one who can help. No one else has the same exact understanding, caring, or ability to give you the attention. Nobody else has those qualities. The mashal I could give you is that there is you're in a prison, you're behind bars, and there is one warden, and that warden is in control of your food, your shelter, your sustenance, and they make sure that no one else comes into yourself to harm you. You're going to want that no one else has this amount of power that could protect you and give you all your needs. The 7th criteria that Ibn Pakuda outlines is that this person who you're going to rely on, shows you kindness whether you deserve it or not. Okay? So these are the 7 criteria that even I was trying to play around with some of the, I think I need more work. I forgot. I used to do it all the time a long time ago with the slideshow, but I can't do it. So I want to ask you the question. Does this person exist? Does a person exist in your life today? And you don't have to say your spouse if they're sitting next to you, right? Does this person exist who has complete compassion, pity, love, cares deeply for you, unquestionably, always has the time for you, never says they're tired, never is busy with anything else, is supremely powerful, and nothing can prevent them from protecting you and giving you what you want? Does a person exist who knows exactly and has perfect knowledge and insight to what you need, not somebody else, but what you need as a human being? Does a person exist who was there for you since the beginning of your existence and has repeatedly, over and over and over, provided for you and cared for you? Are there 2 people that exist that share in the power to help you? And number 7, does the person exist that when you're not loyal, when you're not worthy, whether they will show you kindness anyway? So Ibn Pakuda, after going through this very logical system, decides, right? I don't know if you can see the screen. You see that cute little thing over there, right? Decides that really a person like this does not exist. And he goes through biblical pesukim to show you one by one, through 7 of them, that God is the only being that you should place your bitachon in. Remember, this class is about bitachon, reliance. So number 1, pasuk says, compassion and pity. Tehillim, Rahum v'Hanun Adonai erech apayim v'Rab Hased. Hashem has the mercy. The pasuk, famous pasuk from the story of Yonah. What is the story of Yonah? Hashem says to Yonah, V'ani lo ahus al Nineveh ha'ir gedolah. Am I not going to have compassion on this town? Now remember, Hashem sent Yonah to this town to tell them that they were going to get destroyed. These 2 pesukim and many other proves that Hashem has unlimited compassion. What about the fact that sometimes when we rely on somebody, they're too tired to help us, that they don't have, right, all of the attention? And the pasuk says in Tehillim, Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael, that the shomer Yisrael, the watcher over the Jewish person, never falls asleep and never slumbers. Another pasuk. Is Hashem powerful enough? Pasuk in Devrei Hayamim says, Lecha Adonai hagidulah, God is great. V'hageburah, He is strong. V'hatiferet, v'hanesach, v'hahod, kechol b'shamayim u'b'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamemnacha hamitnaser lechol v'rosh. This pasuk is showing us that God is all powerful. That relying on anybody else, any other human being, that person will not have the power that is necessary, will not have the capability of manipulating the forces of nature in order to get you what you need, that you're relying on him for. Four, we said, who has perfect knowledge of me? My therapist might understand me a little bit better than everybody else, but who has the real intimate knowledge of every workings of my mind? Pasuk says, Hacham lebab ve'amitz koach. Hacham lebab ve'amitz koach. Wise of heart and mighty in power is God. Okay? So God is the one who has perfect knowledge and insight and knows what is beneficial for me and will give me what I need, me, not anybody else. What about the issue of who has been there for me my entire life? Who has been there for me while I was in my mother's womb? The pasuk says, Hal Adonai tigmelu zot am nava v'lo hacham. Beautiful part. Ready? Halohu abicha kanecha. He is your father. Is not he the father who created you and fashioned you and made you endure? Extraordinary pasuk. God has always been there for us from the beginning of our own time. Another pasuk to prove that God has always been there. Alecha nismachti mi betin mim'e imi ata gozi bechat tehillati tamid. While yet unborn, I depended on you. In the womb of my mother, you are my support. I sing your praises only. What about the fact, is there anybody else who's equal to God in power? Is there anybody else that's worthy, that has so far all five of the criteria of being worthy for me to place my trust in? Pasuk says, Mi ze amar batehi, Adonai lo tziva. Nothing is done without the will of God. Now, this is a very, very complicated thing. I will get to it another time. Okay? Mipi alyon lo teseh haraot vehatov. Right? From the, is it not at the word of the Most High that good and bad happens to you? So again, this is a difficult concept which we'll have to unpack another time. But the point in this Pesukim is saying is that nothing happens without the will of God. So why would you want to put your bitachon in anybody else? And more so, we learn in Yeshayahu that the promises, let's say you have a business partner, and that business partner promises you something. How valuable is that promise? In Yeshayahu, the promises are equated to things growing in the field, flowers growing in the field. So let's say you made a business deal with somebody and they signed on the dotted line. Yeshayahu says a beautiful thing. He says like this. Read it. Remember this pasuk? No, listen to this pasuk. Yabesh hasir nabesis ki ruach Adonai nasheva bo achen hatzir ha'am. Grass withers, flowers fade when the breath of the Lord blows on them. Indeed, man is but grass. We need to realize, right? The pasuk we say every day, Al tibtechu bin dibim beben adam she'en lo tishwa. Don't put your faith in wealthy people, because in man there is no salvation. We are equated to what Yeshayahu says. Now, I buy flowers for my wife once in a while. Okay, I should buy them every week, once in a while. But I know that in 4 days, it's going to dry up and wither and go away. And I have to put it in the garbage. That is humans. We are finite creatures. We have a limited amount of time on this planet. All of our promises are just promises that last only as long as we do. And lastly, a beautiful pasuk about kindness. Okay, about kindness. What if I'm not worthy? What if I sinned today? What if I made one of the most serious averot? What if I transgressed in such a horrible way? Pasuk in Tehillim says, Tob Adonai lakol v'rahamav al kol ma'asav. Tob Adonai lakol v'rahamav al kol ma'asav. God is merciful and good to all. So those are the Pesukim, but now I want to have a deeper conversation. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Hang on, so I can get the full screen. We say in Kiddush, Kos Yeshuot Esa Ubshem Adonai Ikra. right? We're holding a cup of wine, and we say, may I lift a cup of salvation to you, Hashem. And what we're doing is that we're crowning Hashem as my benefactor. Is that we're showing Hashem that we rely on him with all of our energy. But in another pasuk, we say, Sarah ve'agon imsa. My life is filled with dread. It's filled with sadness. But what's the continuation of the pasuk? Can anybody tell me? Sarah ve'agon imsa. Good, very good. Ubshem Adonai Ekra. Wow, you guys are good. It's a beautiful pasuk. So you have one pasuk that says, Kosi Yeshuat Esa Ubshem Adonai Ekra. That on the one hand, when I'm very, very happy, I'm lifting up a cup of salvation for God. But in another pasuk, Sarah ve'agon emsa Ubshem Adonai Ekra. That even when I'm sad and I'm tormented, I still call out God's name. That is the Jewish person who has bitachon and Hashem. Ladies and gentlemen, we serve Hashem. We are Eved Hashem, whether things are good or bad. And that's the way to have Menuchat HaNefesh. That's the way to live calmly and tranquilly through life. If you consider yourself as an Eved and you recognize that the things that are happening are not happening bimikre, coincidentally. That is the Ibn Pakuda's approach. It differs. It differs from the approach of other Rishonim, and we will get to that maybe at another time. But in Ibn Pakuda's mind, an Eved Hashem lives calmly, is serene with all the difficulties. Sarah ve'agon emsa ubshem Adonai Kra. Now I want to continue with a little bit of philosophy. How does a person deal with all the bad in his life? How does the person survive as a Jewish person? Remember, I recounted for you last week that over the last 3,000 years, primarily our Abot, Abraham had difficulties, Yitzhak had difficulties, Yaakov had difficulties. This week, Dinah was taken away from the family. Yosef, Hannah. We have our people in foreign, distant lands for 3,000 years suffering. What kept them to be believers of the Jewish faith and in God? Well, there's three analyses that Ibn Pakuda gives for bad in your life. And I want to go through them now, and I'm happy to take questions. Number one, bad is ultimately for the good. What does that mean? So Ibn Pakuda would give you a mashal. Every single person who went through surgery on this call went over to the surgeon afterwards and thanked the surgeon for cutting a hole in them. True or not true? Every single one of you recognize, every single one of you realize that the pain that you endured through your surgery, whatever that was in some way beneficial for your overall health. So if you look at it and you say this, that the bad that is happening to me right now is like God is the surgeon and it's causing me to review and recognize my failings, my weaknesses, the things that I was not able to accomplish. And this is a zap in the head. If a person lives that way and they recognize, hey, everybody has struggles. Viktor Frankl will say, how are you responding to those struggles? Are you saying struggles, you're going to break me down? You're going to rip me apart? You're going to weaken me? Or are those struggles opportunities to remind yourself to dig deep? V'nachkora el Adonai. Nachpesa derachenu v'nachkora v'nashuba el Adonai. Is the pain of the challenge like the surgeon's scalpel cutting into you? You're still going to thank that surgeon and you're going to pay him a lot of money. Consider for a moment that God is your surgeon and that the pain that you're is ultimately for the good. That's one analysis. Two more. Sometimes something that seems bad is really good. And that's the story that we started with the Rabbi Akiva. I am sure that if I was in Rabbi Akiva's shoes and I wasn't allowed into deal for the summer and I had to stay on the outsets, right? I had to stay outside of deal and I wasn't allowed into the parties and into the weddings and into the knis without the masks, I would be cursing the entire time. Oh my God, you didn't give me enough money to go to Deal this summer. I had to stay in Brooklyn. You know what happened to me? I didn't get COVID. I see you laughing. I didn't get COVID. So the Rabbi Akiva was stuck outside the town. Now he had this for sure. He's the Rabbi Akiva. And by the way, I'm sorry. I don't want to joke about a real thing. I'm not trying to I'm sorry. I hope you're not upset at me. I'm just trying to tell a story. The Rabbi Akiva was locked out of town. He lost his donkey, his car. He lost his rooster, his food. He lost his light, his cell phone. And every single time he lost one of those, at the moment, the Gemara says, thank you, Hashem. It's for the good. Now, I can't do that. I'm not that powerful. I want to get there. And I hope some people on this call can get there also. But that's an amazing amount of bitachon on Hashem. And look what happens. He gets to the town the next morning and he realizes that everything that was bad was really good. That's an extraordinary amount of bitachon. The third thing, and we'll end with this, or with questions for sure. The third thing, when bad happens to you, this might be so high, it might be too high for us, is that you accept what's happening, even though it's completely illogical. And that is the definitions of Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha. Loving the Lord your God with all your heart. Even when life stinks, even when you're on the bottom of the barrel, even if you had the most challenging, and I don't know everybody on this call, but people have difficulties. I don't want to go into details. People have difficulties, but if you still loving him unconditionally, even though it's the most difficult time in your life, that is the highest form of being an Eved Hashem. Because you realize that God is in control of this system. He is the prime cause. He is the Gorem Hakol. That is truly the highest form of serving God. Okay, so now I'm going to take some questions. Okay, they were all posted privately, so yes, I'm sorry, Joe. Thank you. Roosters don't have eggs. It must have been a chicken. Okay, Rita asks, if you don't mind, how do you define accept? What does loving Hashem mean? I love my parents. And if I was smart enough, when my parents were punishing me, and I got punished a lot, I would continue to love them. You know, kids say, I hate you. A parent who is punishing the child is just like a doctor giving the child a vaccine. It might hurt. But that inevitably, if you really have an understanding philosophically of the broad way of God working, things happen for a reason, and that is to get humanity to a higher level. We are components, we are cogs in the machine of a vast system of the universe. And the goal of Hashem is to get us to manipulate our own will in order to be, in effect, followers of God's will. Sometimes it's chad va'onesh. When you get an onesh, that is not a bad thing. It means that God cares about you. You have to say thank you. When you get punished, thank you, Hashem. Because that's a reminder that I have to review my misdeeds and review my personality and say to myself, wait a second, I need to work on myself. Okay. So, Joe, that also it talks about punishments. A punishment means that God is mashgiach and he's caring about you. Otherwise, you wouldn't get a punishment. You would be left in complete randomness. And that is the scariest thing. It's scary to think for a second that nobody is in control of me. But knowing that there's a guiding hand and that there's a hand that's shoving me or sometimes smacking me on the side of the head, that's so comforting. It's the difference between a child who's in the house getting punished versus a child getting kicked out of the house completely. I bet all of you that you would much rather be in the house with a caring parent, not an abusive parent, but a caring parent who has proven themselves and so on and so forth.
So does this rabbi believe in Hester Panim?
Yes, but we'll get to it. We're not there yet. there's a beautiful concept that even when Hashem is behind the Hesed Panim, within the Hesed Panim, that a person really believes Hashem Omed. He's still standing there. He's just there. He's distanced from me because something you did. And by the way, we mentioned this in the first class last week, and this is really scary. Ibn Pakuda, quoting Rishonim, quoting big philosophers, says that your amount of providence, of hashgacha, is directly correlated to the amount of bitachon that you have in God. So that means if you get a good job and you just signed a signing bonus for, let's say, $500,000, and you think for a second that that came because of the manipulation that you did to get it, you lost that amount of providence from God that minute. Now that takes a lot of mental exercises, philosophical exercises, to recognize that anything that we're getting, right, is because God willed it to happen, willed it eventually, somehow in the divine process. I'm not suggesting for a second that I understand how this works, but this is a concept of bitachon that people have lived by and have been able to survive by. How we doing? Any more questions? Okay, so I just want to leave you with this. Who do you choose to place your trust in? Your boss, a politician, the military, doctors, lawyers, pilots? I want to leave you with this one concept. And Joe, you remember I gave this class maybe 20 years ago in Kol Israel. There's a beracha that we say when we return from a trip, from a surgery, or from jail. It's called Birkat HaGomel. Birkat HaGomel is there. The rabbis were metaken Birkat HaGomel for a very simple reason. Because we need to be reminded. We need to be reminded because we're humans and we forget. And sometimes when we have a baby, we see the doctor the next day and we are delighted. We are overjoyed and we have a personal connection with this doctor. And sometimes some of us might think that the reason why I have this baby was because of the doctor. Person who wins a law case might go to his lawyer and send him a nice bottle of scotch, box of cigars, might say a million things, plus pay him $1 million. But at the end of the day, right, the success, you say Birkat HaGomel, when you get out of jail, is because the success of that case was reliant on multiple millions of other factors that allowed that lawyer to get you the release. When you land safely from a plane and you thank the stewardess and the pilots on the way out, some of us might forget and think it's because it's a 757 Max. So what was it, 737? 57, 70, I forgot which one. Thank God I wasn't on that Boeing. And that's the reason why I survived. No. We say Birkat HaGomel that Shabbat when we get back is because we need to be reminded that it was not the plane and it was not the pilot. It was the rule of gravity and electromagnetism and all of the natural laws that God is daily bechol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit holding in check. That's the reason why you landed properly. That's why we have this beracha. I love when women, after they give birth, I make sure that they say gomel either at home with 10 people or in shul with 10 people because I know how connected they were to the nurses and to the doctors in recognizing that the baby comes from Hashem. So Birkat HaGomel is essential in making sure that we are reminded of really the prime, what I call the prime cause, the gorem hakol. So I want to wish everybody a good night. We went 15 minutes over our time. I hope you don't mind. Next week is the third week. We're going to do chapter 3. And I hope that you come back and you tell your friends. Have a good night, everybody. Laila Tov.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Would Rabbeinu Bachye prefer that we looked at something that happened to us as a punishment and something that God is trying to show us that we should be correcting or not, or doing something differently? Or is he saying that we're supposed to be looking at something in a way as if it's not a punishment, this is actually the best thing that could happen to you. It's two very different ways of looking at things.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I would say that anything that says that happens to you, you say Baruch Hashem, and you say this. How is what happened to me going to cause me to become better? That means that even if I won $1 million, I reflect and say to myself, how could I utilize this to say how I could become even better? When I lose $1 million, how could I become even better? What did I do wrong that I have to fix? So it doesn't matter, Joe, whether it's a positive or negative, whether it's a punishment or reward. I don't know if something's good or bad. It must always lead to you going to sleep saying, thank you, Hashem, for this. I need to be better in terms of reflection, introspection, and motivation for doing more better the next day. Because I don't know if it's a positive or a negative thing that happened to you. Only Hashem knows. But you still need to utilize that as a tool to continue your forward momentum, your trajectory of getting closer and closer and closer to the ideal of what he wants you to do. Okay? Okay, everybody. See you next week, Monday, 8 o'clock. Thank you for signing on. Please, when you get this in your chats, the flyer, please send it around to your friends. We'd love to have more people joining. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.